Okay, let's start then. If there is any problem, let me know. But first of all, thank you all. Thank you very much for all of you for being here, for being live. I know some of the registrations cannot attend live. This will be recorded. It will be on our channel on YouTube. But the idea here is that we have an interactive session. I hope you make questions, you raise questions, because that's the idea here. And we are going to talk. The name of the webinar is The World of BIZ, and we're going to talk about this. So to start off, let me give you a context about what is TMS BIZ for those of you who don't know. I know there are many people here that know already TMS BIZ, and but some people might not know. So TMS BIZ for the very beginners is a set of TMS products and libraries. Of course, TMS produce Delphi libraries, Delphi components for development, mostly Delphi, some tools. And TMS BIZ is a category of TMS products. And why is named like that? Why there is a category for that? Because it's a set of products that interact with each other, and they are target mostly to database and multi-tier applications. We call it BIZ, we call it before business, but I think mostly it's because in the past, TMS was and still is very known for visual components. And when we start doing some things for database, non-visual server, we wanted to group that in the TMS BIZ family of products. And the focus here, I will show you some, you'll understand in the next slides, because you might ask, there are other solutions out there for doing similar things. But the idea here is focus on reliability, performance, and robustness. It's also about feature sets. We have lots of feature sets for you to build database and multi-tier applications. But the idea also is that you have not only many features, many things that make your life easier, but also something that you can rely on that doesn't have bugs, or if they have, they are very fixed very, very fast, that you have servers that run for a long time without using low memory, that you know that you have peace of mind when building that kind of applications. So there also is Hans here. There's also a confusion about all the names of the products in TMS BIZ, and I try to give you an overview. And maybe some hardcore users don't know yet all of the products, what they do. So I tried here to list some features. I mean, what you can do with TMS BIZ, you can do some logging, okay, logging data. You can make your application, customize it by end user. You have ORM, you have object relational mapping. You can use such technology for you to build your database applications. You have tools for modeling databases. You have a library that provides your application with HTTP layer. So you have the foundation for you to create clients and servers that communicate with each other. You have features for you to create your own API server. You have mechanisms for you to authenticate, secure your application, your servers, to authenticate your users, your customers. You have also ways for you to execute SQL statement remotely. And you have also features for data replication. Why did I list here? Because the product names of TMS BIZ are proper names, so sometimes users get confused. So I'm trying to do some mapping here about the product names and what they do. So we have TMS Logging for logging. We have TMS Scripter for you to customize your end user application. You have TMS Aurelius for ORM. We have TMS Data Modeler for database modeling. Now things get confusing, you have TMS Sparkle for the HTTP layer. We have TMS XData for you to build your API server, TMS Sphinx for security, TMS RemoteDB for remote database SQL statements execution, and you have TMS Echo for data replication. Okay? So this is for you to have an idea of the products. And let's go through each of them for you to have a better overview. So TMS logging makes it easy for you to create log messages. You know what it is. You just want to log, and you can now log to output, to log the messages to files, to the database, to some server. For example, I have some real servers, so I log to Discord channels for some real-time things that I want to monitor, etc. And for each TMS BIZ product, I tried here to bring the competitors, all right? It's not exactly the competitors, but are tools that do similar things, not only for Delphi, but for only languages, for all the development platforms. The idea here is that in case you know some of these tools, you have an idea about what this TMS product is about, right? So for example, you have code sites for Delphi. We have many, maybe some of you have know about Log4Net or Log4j for .NET and Java. So the idea is the same here. That's mostly what TMS logging does. And we have TMS Aurelius, which is object relational mapping. For those of you who don't know about ORM, is a way to manipulate database using objects instead or in addition to using SQL statements. This is my personal favorite product in TMS BIZ because that's what I use the most, because I use it all the time. I don't use SQL statements anymore for more than 10 years. It doesn't mean it's better or worse. It's just personal taste. And it will be similar to, for example, in other languages, to Entity Framework in .NET. Maybe many of you know about Entity Framework, or Hibernate in Java, or just other libraries, similar libraries for other languages. All right. And guys, if you have any questions, I'm trying to monitor in the chat window here. As I said, the idea is to be interactive. Take advantage that you are here live, and let's interact. TMS Sparkle is the HTTP client and server library. It's a foundation. It's similar to Indy. I think many of you know Indy library for Delphi and Web Broker. And there are third-party libraries like Synapse, ICS. There are many libraries to create HTTP servers and connect to HTTP servers from clients using Delphi. But why did you took the effort to create yet another library? Because, as I said before in the first slide, we need reliability, we need performance. We could not create such a set of products relying on something that we do not have control. We cannot control Indy, we cannot control Web Broker. Control in the sense that if there is a bug, if there is a performance gap, we need to take action. So we wanted to create it from scratch for it to be reliable. Still, it's an abstraction that can be used. Also, you can choose to use Indy and Web Broker behind it as well. Okay. And then on top of Sparkle, there are many tools here to create servers. One is XData, which for you to create RESTful HTTP APIs. The difference between Sparkle and XData, with Sparkle, you can create HTTP servers, but it's low level. It's a low level library. With XData, you see later in a demo that I'll show, you can create endpoints using JSON. We deal with Delphi types, so etc. And it's similar to, for example, ROD server in Delphi or DataSnap. But again, why XData and not ROD server and DataSnap? Because we wanted to have full control. We wanted to be able to fix all bugs and make it perform the way we want. And similar to other platforms, XData will be similar to ASP.NET Web API or Express.js for Node.js and other frameworks, full feature frameworks in other languages that allows you to create REST servers, all right? TMS Sphinx, it's also a way for you to create servers on top of Sparkle, HTTP servers. But the idea here is that you can create your own server to authenticate your applications. The idea is that you have a centralized server. With TMS Sphinx, you can create, customize, and launch a server that you can use to authenticate your applications. It's a centralized login server. So you can log in your desktop, web, mobile applications from a single server. For that, it uses standards like OAuth 2 and OpenID Connect. And it's similar to Identity Server in .NET. Actually, I believe now it's called there is a new name here. Identity Server became another server. I think it's Duende Server or something like that. Or Keycloak in Java, or even Auth0, which is a software as a service. It's similar to Auth0 as well. Okay. Finally, Data Modeler is the simplest one because it's not a Delphi library. It's a visual Windows desktop. Import existing structure, create Aurelius classes for you to start with an ORM without having to manually create your classes. And it will be similar to ER Studio, Database Workbench, SQL, Entity Framework Designer, or something like that. There are differences in features, but the idea is the same. RemoteDB. We have execution of SQL statements remotely, and it's similar to DataSnap, that DataSnap way of doing remote SQL executing. Statements with HTTP tunneling. The idea here is that if you have an existing client-server application, if you don't have time to create a new API server, a new REST server, you don't have time to refactor your client application to access a different server, you can use RemoteDB to quickly access your database, move your database from a local network to the cloud, and access the database directly from the cloud using a proxy. A RemoteDB server as a proxy. The idea here is that why use RemoteDB instead of accessing the database directly in the cloud, for example, for you to have more reliability and performance. The idea here is that with RemoteDB, it's less likely that you have errors from internet fluctuations, and you have better performance. Okay. TMS Echo is for data replication. It's for you save data in a database and you can easily replicate, send that modifications to another database, so you have distributed applications with the same data. And finally, TMS Scripter is about the customization of your application, allows executing Pascal basic code at runtime. There is a question here. You created and published a few new demos for the BIZ products. Could you sum up the main news here? Are you talking about the BIZ Boilerplate demo or some other specific demos here? Thomas. All right. Okay, now it's the part of the presentation that I try to illustrate some products that you are more interested into, that you have more questions. So you have our first question here. Let's open the Boilerplate demo. Let me change the screen here. You got me off guard because let me see if I have the BIZ boilerplate. Okay, can you see my screen now? Okay, I'm trying to show you a Git. Are you there, guys? Okay, good. What is the BIZ boilerplate? We have a new repository here. .com TMS software, and the repository is BIZ-boilerplate. The idea here is that this project is under construction, and you can see there is not README yet, but we have a server here. The idea of this project is to bring you with a super demo or a template for you of what an XData server requires to be built. But yes, you can create an XData server. We are talking about REST API server, right? Let's put the context here. The idea is that you create a server, a REST API server with Delphi. For that, you use XData. It's very simple to create a Hello World server with XData. It's just 2 components, 1 wizard, and in 1 minute you have it. But we have received many requests from users for explaining more in-depth details about how to do authentication, how to create some more complex methods, how to structure something that it's easier to deploy and things like that. Full server. That the idea is that you clone the repository and start from it. And if there are things in the repository that you don't need, you just remove it, okay? So let's see what we have so far in this demo, in these templates. For now, we have a Windows. Let me put my glasses here. For now, we have a Win server here, okay? And let me run it here. It's running on localhost. Yeah. Localhost port 2001/TMS/API. And if I, as of with any XData servers, if I do /swagger UI, it will show you the list of endpoints that we have. So we have, for example, the sample endpoint 1 and 2 that we execute. And we have the response value 3 here. What do you have here? We have the services, all right? Here's how you implement the endpoints of XData. You have the sample service here. You have the methods. For example, this sum here. I just I just tell XData that this will be an HTTP GET request. The URL, the path for that, you can see here that we use iSampleService.add. And the parameters, the input parameters and the output parameters. And we have the implementation here, where we implement the interface, and you have the add method here, and you have the implementation. Okay, for the beginners, this is how you create an endpoint for XData. You just, that's why I say it's different from Sparkle. You don't have to do HTTP or JSON. You just create method, and XData will do all the work for you for JSON serialization, etc. Here, the implementation is just an A plus B, but you can have here, for example, you can instance query or multiple Firedoc queries, perform some SQL statements in the database, save files, process whatever you want, and return to the client, right? So here's where you start adding business logic to your application. And the idea is that that's all you do. For example, I just do something like function create order, and I put here T order request. Tô numa live, tá? Tá com câmera. No. And the result is T order result, for example. So I have input objects, output objects, and I come here, implement this, and do all the logic. So the idea of this boilerplate is these methods here, okay? So this boilerplate has implemented in the server here. Here you have the API server. It has our compressed middleware, the JSON Web Token, then generic. So you have, you also have config files. For example, the URL that the server will run, you can configure it from a local here. So you have Win server. Okay. And from that configuration file, you can say, okay, my server will run on port 2001/TMS/API. If I have an authentication, if I need authentication authorization, I am telling the server from which Sphinx server it will accept token. Authentication with private and public keys. Here is some metadata for running it as a Windows service, for example. So it has lots of information here to the cloud, for example. You just deploy the same file and modify it. So for example, if I deploying this, so I can say, okay, my server now in the production server will be HTTPS, will be on port 443, and the URL will be API, for example. Okay, so it's easy for you to run it locally or run it remotely and deployment using configuration files. Okay, so this boilerplate already has all these settings here that you can use for that. And what else? Yeah, you can run it as a Windows server, as a Windows service. If you compile as a release, it will create a Windows service that you can install. Okay, so for running here, you can run can compile it as release and install the service, the Windows service in the cloud. All right. Well, sorry, guys. Is it better now? You said I'm freezing? Okay. Is it better? Okay. Any questions so far? I can, if you have questions, specific questions, the idea, I had two plans here for this webinar. Either show the, can you hear me? Okay. I had two plans. Either show some basic, in case some of you would like to know about different TMS BIZ products. Like, okay, let me know. I don't know what Sphinx is, or I don't know what RemoteDB is for. And then I will show you some basic demos. Or if you guys are more hard-coded or hardcore users, I could show you like the BIZ boilerplate, or one of the ideas will be to show the smart setup server for you to, in case you have questions about how was this done with smart setup, how do you do something like this with TMS BIZ, I could show you as well. What do you prefer? Is there any questions? Is there any specific thing that you like to check? Uh, any questions, any curiosity about smart setup server, or great. Okay, validation attributes. I think great. Now you have questions. Okay, great. Okay, so let's how to use validation attributes. Good. Robert, I'm using TMS Web Core, XData, RemoteDB. I'm looking for best practice approaches to scale this architecture across multiple machines. Run each component. Okay, Robert, make the production more reliable and with multiple servers. And Philip is also asking how to deploy your apps in production. Okay, let me wait a minute here. I will prepare this. Those are valid questions. I try to log into my. When you say freezing, are you talking about my voice or the video? Okay. It looks like my internet is not very good. But I will try to share you. Okay. I try to go slow to avoid the stuttering. I go through all the questions. Okay. Do you see here this is a remote desktop access to the AWS, Amazon Web Services EC2 machine that runs the Smart Setup server. All right. Please confirm that you can hear me and see it. And here, let me show you the structure here so you have an idea of how to deploy our XData server. This is one way, okay? This is a very simple way because the Smart Setup server is very simple. It's very simple server. Workload, right? And we have here you have install it as a Windows service, okay? In the same machine, we have a sandbox server and a production server. Here is how it's organized. It's very simple. If I can find where it, okay, TMS setup. Let me open the sandbox. So here we have the TMS setup server, which is the executable. That's all the application. This is a Windows service, okay? And when we have a start.bat here, that is just net start TMS setup sandbox, okay? And we have a stop. This is just Windows, okay? Okay. This is just Windows service application. And we have this install.bat, which is TMS setup server.exe/install. When I run it for the first time, this will just install the service. And if I click start, it will start running, and that's it. It runs all the time. We have the secrets here that I'm not open here because it has the credentials for you to access the server. And we also have the setup server JSON here, which is the similar that I show you, which has the URL of the server. So it runs here at /tms/sandbox/API. This is the URL. If you go to this URL, api.landgraf.dev/tms/sandbox/API, you get access to the TMS Smart Setup server in sandbox mode. You get an authorized response because you don't have the correct token. Okay, so that's pretty much it. And here, the database it uses is a SQLite database. So here is the SQLite database here. And that's it. What else can I say here? So to deploy here, I upload the executable and the OpenSSL DLLs to the folder. I run install to install the service, the Windows service. I run start to start the service, and the two configuration files, launch the server, and start listening. And for the token signature and generation, we use public, private, and public keys. So signs the JSON Web Tokens using the private key, and the public key is used to decrypt. Inside the same TMS setup server, we have both the API and the Sphinx server running here. Okay, that's it. I hope this answer, as you don't have much time, this answered the question from Philip about how do you deploy your apps in production. This is one way. This is how actual TMS Smart Setup Server is deployed. Okay. Let me see other questions here. Okay, Martin. How do I use XData with a plain DB without Aurelius? XData doesn't require Aurelius. Okay. There is a demo here. Let me change the window. Okay. There is a demo in XData distribution called FireDuck SQL, which shows you here. This is a regular XData server. Okay, you can check the demo later. Let me run here for you to see what it does. Okay, we have a server here and a client. Okay, let me see if it... Okay, let me close the client, reopen the client. Okay, just a regular demo with a server running and some client running here. How the endpoints are done in the client, we have, for example, create customer. All right, when we insert a row, it calls create customer at the service, and how this create customer is implemented. We pass a tCustomer object. This is not Aurelius, okay? This is just a regular Delphi class with ID, name, and country properties. You can use JSON, actually. You can receive, if you want, if you prefer, you can use here a JSON object, okay? But I think using a regular Delphi class is easier because you have type safety and XData serialize it for you. And in the create customer, you just do a regular query, insert into customers, pass the parameters, the ID will be the customer.id, the name, etc., and query exact SQL statements. Okay, the same to delete customers, to get customers, etc. And this query here, you might have been wondering where this query comes from. This is when the service is created, we create an instance of the database model, okay, which simply has a FireDuck connection and a query here. And one that I created in the data model. So that's it. Create a data model with your FireDuck components, including the connection, and just set SQL statements and executes. All right. I hope this question have been answered. Okay. What else? I'm recently discovered some attributes like consumes or max length at method level in the service interface, but I'm not sure if everything works on XData. Yes, everything works on XData. Uh, let me answer your question here. I actually open, let me see if the Smart Setup server has some attributes there. Yeah, this is good. And we have this setup service DTOs. This is live, guys. I'm remembering here. Yeah, and we have. Okay, this is maybe it's a good example. Here is the Smart Setup server, right? Smart Setup, if you don't know or to remember you, Smart Setup is our tool to install TMS products. When you as a customer go to your client side and you run some command lines, it will check if you have the licensed products. It will download the products from the server and install it on your Delphi. For it to work, of course, we have to have some endpoints like list user products, okay? And for the admin side, this is even better. We have some methods here. Like, for example, a TMS here, we have to have a way to create a product. All right. For example, there is this new product coming, TMS AI Studio, right? For artificial intelligence. Point create product to make Smart Setup server to be aware of this new product. Okay. And you can see here that to create a product, we added an attribute required to the objects, obviously, to the object that holds information is a very simple descriptive name, and the TMS ID is just a way for us to link the Smart Setup server with the TMS software backend software. Okay, and here we have more validation attributes. For example, the name is required, so you cannot create a product in Smart Setup server without providing the name. We have to pass the name, and the length of the name has to be 155 characters. And the same for the ID of the product is required, of course. The length is 50 characters, and there is an additional which is validation for the ID, right? It's just a regular expression that means that product ID can only have alphanumeric characters or dots. So that's why when you install, for example, you want to install TMS XData, you have to install TMS install tms.biz.xdata. Hyphens. This is enforced at the server, okay? And these attributes here is very interesting because they will, let me go back there. They will do a lot of things. First, they will make sure, just putting this attribute, they will make sure that you'll not be able to create a product at the server with a product ID that only has alphanumeric characters, for example. Second, if you send, for example, if I try to create a product that has commas or slashes, the XData server will already answer me with a status 400 error and a descriptive error that the validation is failed because the ID of the object create products doesn't match the regular expression, etc. Or it's required, or it's max length. So it's very interesting. It's very detailed for the end user, for the client. And it also is reflected on the documentation itself. For example, I'm not sure if I'll be able to show it here. No. But you will see in some servers, in the documentation, it's this, for example, is a real server built XData. And you have required. This field is a enumerated type that only accepts these two string or null. There are some. This is the default value, and there are some here that has max length or something like that. So this will also go to the documentation of the server. Okay. So Ghazali, I hope this illustrates how. What else? Hello, guys. Hello. Sorry about the audio. I don't know what's happening. What do you mean by too much streaming? Well, what can I say? It's I don't know if it's Marvel movie. Questions here that maybe we can do another webinar, or maybe I can show some videos about it. For example, Fortnite. So it's not that. Ronald asked, can you build with Sparkle a solution like Nginx reverse proxy? All right. And there is another question here, similar, from Robert about strategies. What I use, I think there will be no time to show you, but what we use in some real servers, production servers here, is that we do not want to create an Nginx exactly because we already have Nginx. We already have traffic, all right? And you don't have to code, you just install it and configure. So what we have is we add Nginx or traffic as a centralized server balancing, all right? That's what we do. Or you can use also AWS uh, scale. There's no need to recreate that in XData because what we want to use in Delphi is our business logic, right? You your business logic, your application use case, and the load balance you just put Nginx or traffic on top of it. All right. What else? Uh, Question from Johan. How does the DB Echo work? Let's say I have a large DB with 400 tables. How does it detect changes and would DB Echo be capable of replicating data? All right. Let me run the Echo demo here. The TMS Echo has only one serious limitation. This, unlike XData, Echo is the only TMS BIZ product that requires you to use TMS Aurelius. All right. So it replicates TMS Aurelius data. But if you have TMS Aurelius working in your application, you can replicate the data easily. So this is TMS Echo demo, where we have each form here is a different database. So if, for example, I create a third name here, call it John, this will be automatically replicated to the other database. If I modify John here to be John Smith and Wagner to be Wagner Landgraf, and if I delete Bruno here, notice that one operation in each database, in the end, it will replicate. So it records the changes and broadcasts it to the other nodes. So Bruno was deleted, delete Bruno in all nodes. Wagner 2 was renamed to Wagner Landgraf, broadcasted to other nodes. And John was renamed to John Smith. John was created, broadcasted to other nodes. Okay? So that's the idea. But once you have Aurelius, it will work fine. So, okay, changes feed of the object. So you could not detect changes in data that is correct. Yes. It only detects changes made through TMS Aurelius. If you do some insert statement there, it will not replicate data. That's correct. What else? Let me see if there is some missing questions. Okay. What solution do you use to handle your SSL certificates? Let me go back to the server. Here we use WinAcme. Okay. Actually, I have made a blog post about it on TMS blog. It's just a tool that uses Let's Encrypt certificates. So it's just a third-party tool that creates Let's Encrypt certificates. And all you have to do in addition to what it's there automatically is that I created this bat file here, bind certificates. So every time a new certificate is issued, Let's Encrypt certificates. Let's Encrypt is a free certificate for HTTPS, okay? And this tool, WinAcme, generates such certificates. And I can configure it for whenever there is a new certificate, it runs this bind certificates batch file that simply deletes the old expired certificate and adds the new certificate, binds the new certificate to the XData server, or more specifically to http.sys kernel level. This is all Windows here. And XData simply uses the certificate that it's configured in Windows for SSL. There is a blog post about it. Let me find it. Using you can Google for TMS software Sparkle use Let's Encrypt certificates. Here, enable HTTPS in your REST server with free Let's Encrypt certificates. Free certificate from Let's Encrypt. Okay, the process is described here. Here is the bat file. It shows you where to download the WinAcme here. There is a GitHub. Download this tool, install, and configure that bat file, and you have your certificates. Okay. Guys, I think we have reached 1 hour of webinar. There are lots of there were lots of interesting questions here. I wonder if you have other suggestions, other questions that we might write down for the future, for future YouTube videos or for future webinars. Any comments? Nope. Actually, I apologize for the audio. If the recorded version is also bad, maybe you try to record here. But thank you for the very interesting questions. I will try to compile them and maybe create some more target videos for interesting questions here. And thank you very much for being here. I will be here for another minute. It's useful to continue. Client handling for the TMS XData clients. Okay. All right. Write down any comments that you have here. I will write down and try to create content for you. Thank you very much, guys, for being here, for giving your time for this webinar, and hope to see you in the next one.